It's not if an EV is coming. That's already gone out the window. It's when is an EV coming.
I know you always use that terminology. I know, I think you even said this like a few years ago about like EVs. It's not if, it's when that happens. All right, welcome back to All Things Acura, everyone. This is Matt,
And I'm Justin.
and welcome back to another episode here. Is this 13?
I think it is. Is it lucky number 13?
It's lucky number 13, and
there you have it.
that's how it goes.
That's it.
We're trying this again.
We're going to give it another whirl.
This is so much fun creating a podcast in the middle of a workday, and obviously there's challenges there. So
It's the third time's the charm.
it is.
That's what they say.
That is what they say. It is third time's the charm for lucky number 13 podcast. So we're on number 13, which is crazy.
Is it lucky? Well, I guess we're gonna find out.
Yeah, we're gonna find out
how much we get through.
Yeah, we'll get through some comments and stuff on the next one because I know there's some other news that we want to talk about, and there's some great comments. Again, we appreciate everyone's comments and questions that everyone has. But I know that we did want to get to some news that Honda and Acura really came out with recently.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's new news to speak of, but they've been talking about a lot lately, probably in the last couple of weeks, anyways. Mm-hmm. And that's the question that everybody is asking now, and that is, when is Acura going to come out with an EV?
Yeah, and that's kind of a follow-up to, if you listen to our last, or I think we just posted the last podcast regarding like fuel. So it's interesting. So we wanted to piggyback on that because obviously the conversation of electric vehicles has really ramped up with that conversation. So, it's kind of a timely news or information that Honda has really come up with. So we wanted to obviously address that.
And I imagine there's just a lot of people out there that probably want to know that question or get an answer to that question.
Yep.
Of when's the EV coming?
Yep.
It's not if an EV is coming. That's already gone out the window. It's when is an EV coming.
I know you always use that terminology. I know, I think you even said this like a few years ago about like EVs. It's not if, it's when that happens. And like, the dealership model and everything like that. So obviously a lot of brands being in the fold right now with electric vehicles. Honda's been a little late to talk about this, but...
So let's talk about that real quick, because Honda's take on EV was probably a little different than most manufacturers. And whether you like them or not, they're coming. And we'll go down that path a little bit so you understand that. But Honda's take has been, and I don't speak for Honda, but under their breath, they're kind of been really hard at research and development on fuel cells. Mm-hmm. And they've kind of been saying that EV is not the future of sustainability and saving the planet and everything else that goes along with it. But the industry has forced Honda to shift gears, and so they're tired of hearing about it, and I think they're shifting gears now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Honda's kind of done that. They kind of march to the beat of their own drum, and Toyota was also kind of late to that game too. And I think in the one article I read, it said something like I think it was just 2 months ago that Toyota came out with that plan for what their electrification looks like. And obviously Honda followed suit. Probably because they felt their hand was forced a little bit. Yeah,
with the whole industry and Tesla taking the big charge of that, and good for Tesla. They've really built some big infrastructure and really helped that whole thing along. Mm-hmm. But with everybody else jumping on board, you're forced as a manufacturer to say, well, I'm going to have to be in that same game too, because that's what the consumer in general is going to expect. And well, they've all dove into the deep end of the pool now, man.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to kind of get into is what's the future look like. And I think the one thing, obviously there's EVs coming, but we're going to see how many and farther down the road and what that time frame looks like.
And actually, I'm just reading this here. I didn't realize that Honda has one electric vehicle that they sell. Did you know that? It's not offered in North America. It's, I think, that little guy, which we'll get into in a second. Welcome back to Serra. Oh, no, we already did that earlier, didn't we?
I think we did. Yeah. I told you, third time's the charm.
Is this the third time? This might be the fourth time now.
It could be. Yes.
All right, so I apologize as we kind of pick up where we left off a little bit, but we were obviously just getting into the electrification of what Honda is going to be offering here soon. And again, I didn't realize the Honda makes the Honda E, the EV. That was the last thing. That is the only electric vehicle that they do make, which is not offered here in North America, which is kind of neat. But with that news, there are plans to launch 30 electric vehicles globally.
Ways away, and I always feel like, yeah, you can say almost anything when you're talking about 15, 18 years away, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Who's going to remember that statement when that happens, right? Well, and I don't know, maybe 30 doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking that far down the road. That's just a long way. But a lot of other markets, as Matt was saying, with the Honda that's an electric vehicle, they have one out in, is that in Japan?
Yeah, the Honda E, which is kind of a cool little car.
It is a neat little,
and people have been like,
car.
You see like articles, people are like, bring it here. It's like, no.
A lot of European countries, and I think they're way farther ahead on the EV front than where we're at. And I think it's surprising that a lot of that hasn't migrated over here to the United States, but we're so dependent on our regular gasoline engines. I'm not going to say ICE. I know that everybody wants to say ICE, but
ICE powered.
You're probably listening to this show. ICE is not, I go to my refrigerator to get ICE, but I'm not thinking in terms of the cars in my driveway as ICE. I'm not going to probably say that for a while yet. Here we are with the acronyms in the business, and boy, it just drives me nuts.
We're gonna shun them
right off the bat.
Yeah.
Wow, you're still driving an ICE vehicle? Well, sure we are.
Sure, yes, we are. Yeah, and maybe that's a little bit of makes me wonder, like, if that term ICE, I know it's what it stands for, but it's like, if they like using it because it makes you feel like those cars are frozen in time, right? They're not like moving forward. So I have a feeling it's a little bit of a slight toward those types of...
you could be onto something.
I don't know. I have all sorts of theories, and we're not going to get into that, but...
So let's talk about the time frame of when you could expect an Acura EV. So what's going to happen is in the news, so we'll kind of talk about the recent news. They talked about the partnership with Honda and General Motors. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it just came out. They just announced it, but they actually announced that last year.
Yeah, that's old.
And actually it's been ongoing for some time. So it's not really new news, but it seems to be coming up as new stuff. So they announced that partnership, and this is Honda's way of getting their foot in the door in the EV world faster. So they're partnering with GM.
Yeah, GM. Yep.
On their battery platform that they already have engineered for is the Cadillac, correct?
The Cadillac Lyric is like kind of the platform, I believe.
Yeah. And I know there's a name to that, and I'm just...
The Lyric. Cadillac Lyric.
The Lyric.
I know we got
the name of the platform that they're using, which I don't know.
Oh, okay.
The architecture, I guess.
I gotcha.
That. And so the first one is going to be announced as the Honda, which will be they say large SUV in 2024, and there'll be the Honda Prologue?
Prologue, yeah. Almost like Prelude, but Prologue.
And then right behind that, and that's kind of how they spell it out to us as far as the timeline, right behind that will be the Acura version of that same large SUV in 2024. We can make the assumption that could come out spring, summer as a 25 model. Yeah. That's usually how those go. But they did say the year of 24, not the model year of 24.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it says, coming in 2024. And it's interesting because, this is the one thing I haven't done enough research on is like the partnership with Sony. Where does that come in with GM?
Right. So, it doesn't. And that's what's interesting. Yeah. So they're going to partner with GM to get that first one out. And then they're going to work on other models to try to make them more cost effective. Obviously, the more manufacturers you get involved in similar platforms, the better they can do as far as efficiency and keeping the price down. And I think that's the other latest piece of news that came out is they were going to partner to keep the car at a lower price point.
Yep.
I don't know if that'll hold true for the two that are coming out, but as they develop future models. So between now and 2024, it'll be the partnership between GM and Honda to get things kind of off the ground.
Yep.
And then after that, in 2025, is when the partnership between Honda and Sony kind of takes over.
Yep.
And Honda and Sony will be co-developing models.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting as you keep reading these things and what they're planning on developing. And I know we talked a little bit about this earlier with regards to, how obviously the electric vehicles typically are more expensive. So is that going to be on the Acura side of things? Where they make that move.
Right. So when we talk about electrification, the industry talks about that in all terms. So that means we think of it as maybe just a pure plug-in EV, but that also is hybrids or also plug-in hybrids.
Yeah.
So across that whole span of everything that's electric and in a vehicle. And
it keeps that cost down for the Honda, right?
For the Honda, right.
Yeah.
So what they're thinking that's going to happen is Honda's going to transition more of their models to offering a hybrid to a plug-in hybrid, and then eventually moving to the EV, where the Acura models that we might see down in the road in the future, and we'll kind of give you our thoughts on that, will probably just go straight to a plug-in EV versus having a hybrid gap.
Right, exactly, yeah, and obviously, Acura tried the MDX hybrid and RLX hybrid, and maybe that didn't fit well with this group. Obviously, we didn't sell a whole lot of those, so maybe the right jump is to go to the electrification of these cars, and because that is the way to go. So it'll be interesting to see what unfolds over the next couple of years, because there's still a lot of stuff it's in the works, right? We haven't seen that. They haven't even said, hey, here's what the Acura one is going to be called, and which we could talk. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, what was the trademark that they would patented? Would they patent it or trademark it?
I think they trademarked. Well, basically they buy the naming rights for a specific name, and ADX is what. And there's articles right now that you could go and it says the next Acura electric car could be called the ADX. We don't know that. Who knows? We probably know it's going to be an SUV, but that's I think all we kind of know at this point.
Yeah. So what we do know, or what we think, as far as speculations on our side, from what we hear from Acura, is by 2030.
Yeah.
So 8 years from now, most of the lineup, and I think it's going to be 60% of the lineup, is going to be electric.
Yeah.
Meaning that they're just going to have some leftover, whatever the gasoline engines, not ICE.
Gasoline
are going to be,
or petrol
engines are going to be. And then, so how's that look? If you start looking at the timeline for research and development, and I think they've already come out and said this, there's almost no more research and development going into regular gasoline engines. So your models that are out now are pretty much it. It will be hard pressed to see anything future that is a regular gasoline engine vehicle.
Yeah,
I know it's kind of weird. It's spooky when you think about it.
I just got that spooky feeling because I'm like, man, we're like living in this like kind of a historic potential era here, right? And we're talking within the next decade where who knows what percentage of gasoline engines are going to be left on the market.
Well, so as an industry, there's still going to be millions,
yeah.
And I think they think even by 2030, there will still be 60, 80 million vehicles on the road that are gasoline. So that is not going away per se, but if you go out to buy a new vehicle 8 years from now, it'll be hard to find one.
Right, I am curious to see. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're going to like whatever brand it is, hey, where's your gas cars? I think we have one in the back there. Like,
right. I think they parked that last one that was just delivered over. It'll be interesting to see. So we kind of went through the lineup. We know we have the Integra coming out, which is a gasoline engine, right? With no talks about a hybrid. We don't know if that's coming down the road or not. They haven't said anything about
It's 2023, right?
So 2023, right? So we have the Integra, which if you consider a 5-6 year lifespan of that vehicle, will put you right about 2029, right?
Yeah.
So it puts you right up against that. So the next version of that car will probably be an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
If we look at the current models, the MDX, this could be the last gas version of the MDX.
Yeah. And it's funny because, with Acura's the NSX, and I'm bringing up the NSX because, we had the clients that we've had, they were actually really interested in buying that car, not because it's the last one, which I'll get into what, they're going to be, I'll talk about that in a second, but because it's kind of like the end of an era, right, for that car. And it's interesting to see what's going to happen is, there's so many things that are going to change over the next few years. Like, is it going to be harder to get gas in electric cars, in the future? So if you're buying that gas car, is that going to be worth your time? So it's going to be interesting to see who wants to gather up those last gasoline powered vehicles. And with that being said, the NSX, a lot of the stuff that I'm reading is saying that the next generation of the NSX will be electrified.
Yeah, if they are coming out with another generation, which I think they will bring that nameplate back someday. And you're right, it will probably be an electric version of that vehicle, completely electric. Which I think, if you across the board, right, it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, even I think Ferrari and all these other Porsche, I mean, they've all come out and said that okay, we're done with the gasoline engines in this category, and it is going to be electric from here.
Yeah.
What's interesting about the whole thing is the industry's pushing that way now. They've already stepped on the gas, and they're not letting it off at all. They shifted into other gear. They're not. But I don't know that the consumer said, "Hey, we want all electric right now." Right? I think that it's still small, and I think the infrastructure has got so far to go. It's hard for us to see that far out. Right?
Well, sure. In our, across the globe, and I think a lot of people forget about this, but our driving characteristics in like the Midwest or in the United States in general is so much different than the rest of the world.
Yeah, we use the example of we had just 2 Teslas traded in a couple months ago during the winter because they were newer ones that they bought because the range difference when it got cold was so extreme. Here we're in Ohio, and it gets pretty cold here in the wintertime, and they just couldn't get enough range out of them to meet what their needs were.
It was like 2/3 of what it was like 60% basically of what the car normally gets.
Yeah, I think the one gentleman that you were working with said he could barely make it back and forth to work.
Yeah,
the difference.
Right, exactly.
It was.
It's pretty amazing, and that's obvious, and that's kind of a problem they haven't really solved yet. I don't care what the manufacturer is. I know what was the new one that just came out, Lucid Air. I think they're claiming a 500-mile range, but at the same time, you're spending like $100,000. So that's a huge. I mean, the average person isn't buying that car, right? And so that's a huge disparity between okay, I'm going to get 500 miles on an electric car versus the 200-300 that you're seeing in a lot of
and I think range fear is. Is that what they call it? Range fear?
Range fear. Yeah,
range fear.
There'll be a whole set of like new.
It's like when your battery's about to die on your phone, right? Except now it's your car, right? You can't.
Where's the plug?
Where's the plug? Right. So there's that fear of not having enough power, and obviously the infrastructure is not even close. I mean, locally here, we'd be in trouble if this was happening quickly because. I mean, there are no chargers around here to speak of. I mean, there's a handful here and there, but certainly couldn't support even 10% of the cars on the road being electric.
On my commute home, I don't think I can name one. Other than I think we could charge here at our Chevy store.
Our Chevy store, yeah.
But that's about it, right? There's not like a station. And I said this to a client recently, like, man, why don't these gas companies, who knows what's going to happen over the next 10 years if people really start buying up electric cars? Why don't they just somehow invest in like put a couple of charging stations at the gas station?
Well, I think so. That's part of the government's infrastructure the plan, because obviously they're the ones also trying to push the manufacturers to this point.
Perfect.
So hopefully there's a plan that goes along with that. I'm not going to get into politics, so I'm not going to talk about that.
Right.
But hopefully they have a plan, because there needs to be one to get to where they want to go. Especially with this in an industry. That's a massive amount of vehicles. I mean, on the road being electric.
Well, exactly. And most manufacturers, obviously now including Honda, have this grand plan of 30 cars, by 2030. That's a lot of cars, right? And so it really starts to, people, your choice of what you could buy starts to change, and then it starts to change how people buy stuff. So it's going to be amazing, again, what happens over the next few years. And we're sitting back in this position where we don't know what that looks like, right? We don't have an electrified car, so we don't get to deal with that very often. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Oh, by the way, it's built on the Ultium architecture.
Yeah, and I think that battery technology is one thing that's going to be a huge opportunity, because the technology to get to the range that they want, and then also having the availability of resources to make those batteries.
Sure.
Because we're already having a crisis with chips, and that's not getting any better, at least even at the moment. Batteries are the next problem that is coming in, and they say that battery outlook could be 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, because as the industry ramps up, everybody wants their electric car on the market today. There's not enough battery capacity right now.
Right, and then
So-
keeping the cost down on some of these cars. You have like, I think
Yeah.
that what's the cheapest electric car right now? Like $45,000 maybe starting price.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if
think
it's-
that Chevy Bolt might be the
Is that-
the
okay,
most
so-
cost-effective one. And I don't know, Hyundai's car that they came out with, I think, was priced pretty attractively.
Okay, and I think that's kind of what the partnership with like Sony is going to be, as well as they start to develop those to make those affordable. And it'll be interesting how it affects us here at Acura. Obviously, and that's pretty much all we don't know much more than that, other than what I'm sure anyone else who's reading all these articles out there. We don't have any insider information.
Yeah, so what we've kind of shared is all they've shared with us. They have said that, that those certain benchmarks as far as when the first Acuras should be coming out in 2024, and they have said by the year 2030, they gave us a little graph to show us how, 60% of the car's minimum will be all electric. Mm-hmm. So we know that it's coming and it's coming fast, and that's why we start to look at the different models and say, okay, well, what's next and what's happening?
Yeah.
There is talk also, as we're talking about models, that there will be another model added to the Acura lineup. Our speculation, because they haven't said what that's going to be, is probably another SUV, and it'll be interesting to see, is it a it will be probably a gas-powered car, because obviously it won't be the next electric car,
Right.
but we'll have other options. We'll have a plug-in hybrid, we'll have a hybrid option, and time will tell.
Who knows? Yeah, time. Yeah, obviously been here for almost 8 years, and it was hard to imagine what that. I mean, it's changed a lot, really. I mean, over the past handful of years here, and so that's what's kind of interesting to see. As time goes on, what that looks like, and I wish we had more information in terms of what we knew from the manufacturer, but we just don't at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds like, and I think we just kind of want to let you know what we knew, because it sounds like a lot of places have a lot of answers, and they don't necessarily have answers. They have what the companies want for the future. And, Honda's already talking about their goals for 2050, which there's no way anybody that is listening to this with us today is probably going to be engaged in that in 2050.
Yeah.
As far as the concern, but they have,
Sorry.
that's a pretty long timeline out there. Two other little notes real quick. Interesting thing, no more Acuras in China. I don't know if anybody even knew that was a thing, but a little short history. Acura was developed for the U.S. market, and they really are a U.S. market brand, and it's been that way for a long time until years ago they jumped into the China market to try to make another luxury brand for the Chinese market.
Yep.
And they've now pulled that out to move to an EV brand in the market, which will be a Honda brand that's going to be renamed EIN.
Oh, I don't even know.
It has a name already. And they've already launched it in China, and they'll have 5 models, I think, EV models coming out in the next several years.
Yeah, I think we knew that was going to happen. There had been a lot of talks about that, and I think we even said that a few podcasts ago. We said that might be happening, but
right. And then the last neat little piece of information in there, and this kind of talks a little bit back to what we were talking about with trim levels, is that Honda is working hard. They have been working hard to reduce the number of trim levels. From 2018, we are down to half the trim levels they offered before, and they want to cut that by another third. So they only want a third of the trim levels that they offered several years ago, which means that we had talked on a last show about the advanced package, and could they possibly be getting rid of that?
That's right. I forgot we talked about that.
And there's a good chance that they are going to drop some of these trims. They don't want that many different options available.
Well, they kind of are starting to do that with the Integra, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
There's really only 3, right?
yeah,
Forget about the transmissions. There's really only 3, and I don't know if they're going to expand that.
We had speculation that they might, but now that I see that news, it does kind of tell me that they're working hard to just hit the right, the popular ones, and stick with that and go. And that kind of goes back to maybe their brand formula years ago. And that was, maybe you weren't here then, but back in 2004 when they launched the 2004 TL, was super successful. But even the TL before that, and that was the 99, 98.
Well, sure.
99.
Yeah.
2000. They only had the two models.
Yeah.
It was with or without navigation.
Right, with
That was it.
tech, but which was basically just.
And they only had that for years.
Yeah.
And so now they've gone to all these different trims and powertrains, and so I think they're working their way back to that type of model.
And it's funny because out of all the brands, Honda and Acura probably do the best job at limiting the amount of selections that people have for the better. There's those studies that show, they interview people who went to an ice cream place that had 30 flavors, and they went to interview some people who went to an ice cream place that had 2 flavors, and the people who were the most satisfied were the people who chose the 2 flavor one, because less is more, right? You have less options, you maybe get more stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, and you don't feel bad about the choice you made, right?
Right. And they can be more efficient and hopefully more cost effective with if every car has that feature, it's certainly going to be better than if that's one of 6 different models.
Exactly. Yeah, and with everything, becoming so standardized, and just to kind of talk a little bit about the Integra, there's a lot of questions that come up as people are trying to order the Integra. Obviously, it's a new car, and wanting to make sure it has all the safety features. Well, a lot of that stuff is becoming so standard now. It's hard to get a car without a lot of features on it now. So it's like, well, why not condense everything? But yeah, so it's crazy market. We'll see what happens over the next couple of years. So if you hang with us that long,
hang with us. We'll know. We'll know more stuff probably as the year goes on. Anytime they have an announcement of a new model like the Integra, they kind of keep everything else under wraps. So after the Integra comes out, we'll see what follows that, and we'll let you know everything we know when we know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Comments, questions, obviously keep them coming. We did not get to them this time. I promise we will get to them next time on the next one. We just wanted to talk about that on this one.
Yeah, we want to touch on the news. Please keep the comments coming. There's some really good ones we'll touch on, and we look forward to more of them. And let us know how we can help.
Yeah, and like and subscribe if you guys are liking the content. We appreciate it. Obviously, we enjoy doing this. There's no monetary value that we're getting out of this other than the simple enjoyment of just discussing Honda and Acura products.
Just trying to find time in the day to carve out to do it.
That's right. Thank you so much for listening, and have a good one.
All right, thank you.